Hello and welcome to Earth911's Sustainability in Your Ear, the podcast about people making society and the economy more sustainable and environmentally responsible. We're back this time to talk about lawns. You know, a lawn can be beautiful, but it takes a heavy toll on the environment. Popularized by British aristocrats and their middle-class imitators in the 17 and 1800s, the grass lawn has become a signal of status that contributes to water pollution from fertilizers and spilled fuel. And they represent a virtual black hole of water consumption, accounting for up to 60% of residential water use in the United States. By adopting natural practices, especially avoiding fertilizer and relying on healthy soil's ability to store rainwater, we can dramatically reduce the environmental impact of our lawns and homes. Some of us may want to abandon grass altogether in favor of xeriscaping or other drought-resistant landscaping, but keeping an attractive green lawn is still a priority for many and can add to the value of your home. In some neighborhoods, in fact, a manicured lawn is required by the Homeowners Association. Our guest today, Rob Moir, Ph.D., is the president and executive director of Ocean River Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Ocean River Institute works with residential lawn owners to heal damaged ecosystems by restoring coastal areas to lessen the destructive impacts of climate change. The benefits of a natural lawn reach far beyond reduced local water pollution. It removes chemicals that can contribute to cancers, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and other cellular diseases. And natural lawns are also better for local pollinators. Natural lawns also store more carbon than heavily fertilized lawns. The Ocean River Institute is challenging Massachusetts communities, town by town, to take a pledge to follow natural lawn practices, and Rob is here to explain the program. You can learn more about Ocean River Institute at oceanriver.org. Ocean River is all one word, no space, no dash, oceanriver.org. Welcome to the show, Rob. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, a pleasure to have you here. Tell us, how long has the Ocean River Institute been in operation, and what do you do?
So the Ocean River Institute was formed in 2007. And at that time, I had been contracted to get people to support in Massachusetts an ocean planning bill, to have the different silos of government talk to each other on planning how we're going to treat the ocean. And so my job was to reach out to constituents. And so I traveled around talking about the importance of the bill. And then I asked people to not only sign a petition in support of the bill, but to write a personal comment. And so the Ocean River Institute is now known as the only organization that raises diverse voices. I listen to the comments and I organize to make sure they sound good. And so we've gone on to work on many issues, but we started with the Mass Ocean Planning Bill, and then that was followed by the National Ocean Planning Bill, Obama's National Ocean Planning stuff. So we are now, if you go to our webpage, you will see at oceanriver.org, you will see 6 different campaigns that are different issues. And one of them is lawns, which I want to talk with you today about.
Well, how do lawns and lawn care tie back to protecting your shorelines and watersheds?
When my son and I went on a small 16-foot or small sailboat, a day sailor, out of Katuitt on the south shore of Cape Cod, and we got halfway to Nantucket, 5 miles out, and the wind died, and so we had a paddle. And when I put the paddle in the water, the blade disappeared. And I found that if I put the water up to my elbow, I couldn't see my fingers. There was so much blooming algae in the middle of Nantucket Sound. And so that algae is coming from nitrogen. In the ocean, it's nitrogen. In lakes, it's phosphorus. That's coming off the land from septic and sewage, from agriculture, and from fertilizers. And so we see all these lawns stretching down to the waterfront. Right. And so I wanted to, I went ashore and talked to the groundskeeper for Barnstable and said, can you not fertilize during the summertime, which is when the water's the warmest, the daylight's the longest, and the algae is the bloomingest, you know? And he said, well, yeah, but then my employees wouldn't have anything to do. And I resisted saying that's when they're supposed to cut the grass and stuff. So that got us interested in that. Also, lobstermen south of Cape Cod are encountering so much algae in the water that they have to carry a vat of boiling water in the back of the lobster boat to dunk the pots, the traps in the line to rid them of the algae. Otherwise, it'll get too heavy and will break. And so they're going down the shorelines, cursing those lawns that stretch down to the harbors of vineyards.
I know Kotoit well, actually. A good friend of mine lives there, and you're right. I can remember standing and looking in the water and thinking, boy, that seems awfully dirty for the ocean. But to your point, it is the interstitial space between the ocean and fresh water. So let me ask you this. We are all accustomed to following the instructions provided by the fertilizer industry, particularly on advertising during football games. What happens when we do that? Are we over fertilizing? And then what are the consequences?
Exactly. So what happens is that so they spread this fertilizer on the surface, and therefore the grass can sprout and the roots stay on the surface soaking up. They don't have to go into the ground. And because the roots are on the surface, they keep the grass plants a little bit separate from each other. And this opens up exposed spots that we call sunspills on the soil that then bake and the soil compacts. And then the roots are on the surface. So that's why they need a lot of water. And they are only taking up nutrients from the fertilizer, not from the soil. So the grass is wimpy and it's more easily munched on by animals. And the soil is only appropriate for weeds to grow in now because it's so dense. And then the fertilizer industry says, oh, you didn't let us look under your turf early enough. So we didn't prepare your lawn for this. So we've got to prepare for this, which is we will overseed, meaning we'll punch holes in the encrusted soil and we'll spread more seed out and we'll spread herbicides and pesticides to get rid of those weeds. And so this whole thing gyrates downward because all of these chemicals are killing the microbes and stuff in the soil.
So essentially, the grass simply doesn't go deep into the soil because it's so overfed at the surface, which also means you have to overwater it. And thank you for explaining what a sunspill is, because that's one of my big problems with my yard. I've been trying to move to actually a less grass intense yard. But when you think about the basic principles that one should adopt for their lawn, can you tell us what natural lawn care consists of?
Yeah. So once your lawn's established, then it has the grass plants have a symbiotic relationship with the fungi in the ground. And the only way the plants were able to move out of living in the water onto the land was because they had a symbiotic relationship with fungi that coated the roots and so they wouldn't dry out. So just like lichens are fungi and algae, plants survive by having the symbiotic relationship between the mycorrhizal fungi and bacteria. And so it's a little package of the three of them together. And you don't want to disrupt that.
So the herbicide that you were describing a few moments ago also contributes to killing off the important part of the soil that the grass is looking for, in a sense.
That's right. So one application of glyphosate Roundup will kill a quarter of your fungi that's connecting all the plants and feeding them. Because the plants, and also just nitrogen is suppressing the fungal growth, because what the plants are doing is that they are photosynthesizing and creating carbohydrates. And half of them they use for planting plant fiber, but half of them is liquid carbon that they are putting out of their roots as exudate to feed the fungi. And then the fungi, in turn, the fungi have very skinny strands called hyphae, and the hyphae are so thin that they can touch every cell inside the plant. So when you step on the grass or when you cut the grass, it stimulates the plant cell to repair itself. And so the plant sends out enzymes of what it needs to repair itself into the fungal network. And we call this the wood wide web. And it reaches under your entire lawn and connects all the different plants to bacteria. And then at the end of the web are bacteria that are specialized. So you have nitrogen fixing bacteria. And you also have the mycorrhizal fungi can provide antibiotics to help fend off stuff. So, yeah, and if you step on the grass one place, they're all signaling how to respond to it. So you want to have a healthy mycorrhizal network under your lawn.
So this is fascinating. There's this entire telephone network of communication going on within the ground and between the various plants in your lawn and around the lawn. But there are other forms of symbiosis, such as the relationship of the lawn to local pollinators. How does natural lawn care change that experience?
Yes, in Springfield, Massachusetts, researchers from the University of New Hampshire studied 16 lawns, and they looked at the cutting regimes of them. They didn't water any of them. And this is a big thing in Massachusetts. We don't want to water when the rivers are low and stuff. And so natural lawn, you can just let it brown up and it'll green up again in this fall when it gets water and stuff. If it won't, then maybe you're in too xeric a situation and you shouldn't have a lawn at all. But so in this situation, they cut the grass weekly, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. And they found out that when the grass was cut every 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that there were all these spontaneous lawn flowers, 34 different plant species that are seeding into the lawn. And I have never seen a lawn that's a monoculture, just no more than a forest is a monoculture. You'll see in the pictures that there are different kinds of grass blades, and they've sorted out how to work there. So then we have 34 plant species. And the lawns that were mowed every 3 weeks had 64 different species of bees. And the lawns that were mowed every 2 weeks had 93 bee species living in the lawns. So apparently the bees like a little shorter grass than every 3 weeks, but they don't like really long grass. And what's exciting is that 93 bee species is 1/4 of all the bee species that live in Massachusetts. 80% of them were solitary ground nesting bees that don't have hives. Now, I tell people that, they go, oh no, I want to get stung. No, this is not that kind of bee. And 14 of the bee species were first time identified in Hampden County. And 42% of them were these small bodied sweet bees. And they have a small forage area. So we know they live their entire life cycle in the lawn. And there was ample nesting opportunities for bees because you just find these pit nesting depressions in the lawn as well. So it turns out that if you have a natural lawn, you don't have to plant bee pollinating plants around your yard, because the wildflowers of you can because they look good and stuff, but you don't need them for the bees.
So what other kinds of, what kind of flowering species are we talking about? Clover? What else?
I forget.
Okay.
Just all the little things that you see in flowers, it's just really.
So it's not a problem. In fact, that's a benefit for the lawn rather than a problem. And many people are out there trying to take the clover out, for instance.
Oh yeah. No, and the rabbits, they love the clover. Yeah, exactly. So here in Somerville, we have rabbits and turkeys and all these animals that are living on our natural lawns because our lawns are so small that we're not treating them. Whereas out in Dover, Mass, it's a big rural area, and there I talked to the conservation commissioners, and the only people not using lawn care were about 6 people across the table from me in the whole town and stuff.
Let's take a moment. We pay a few bills with some advertising. We'll be right back with Rob Moir at the Ocean River Institute. We're back talking with Rob Moir of the Ocean River Institute about natural strategies for lawn care. Let me ask you this. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and where water is not necessarily a problem, but I'm cultivating moss in my lawn. Is that a good idea to retain the water, or does that actually rob the surrounding plants of water?
Well, generally, when you have moss in lawns, that means it's too shady for the grasses to take. And so then, yeah, you want to cultivate the mosses. But because grasses will, more than any other plant, pump so much liquid carbohydrates into the soil that, so let's do some of the numbers there. 1 ton of root exudate from the grass means that it's the equivalent of 3.64 tons of CO2 pulled from the atmosphere just to make that much carbohydrates. And then plants will take half of their drawdown and make plant fiber. So that means that for 1 ton of root exudate, you have 8 tons of soil, 8 tons of CO2 that's been pulled out of the air. And a healthy lawn can build an inch of soil in a year. And then with 4 inches of lawn soil, say over 4 years or 5 years, that lawn will hold 7 inches of rainwater. So that's more than mosses will hold. But you want everything. You want a mixture of stuff. And so by holding so much rainwater, this is better protecting your house from extreme weather events. It's also enabling the grass to stay green for longer drought periods because it's been developing soil.
So that kind of a lawn also basically addresses the urban heat effect around your home. It keeps your house cooler.
Absolutely. That's what's so exciting, is that plants actively regulate the cooling process. And you'll feel it under trees in the summertime where it's really hot. The little stomata in the tree leaves open and release water vapor, and it evaporates. And evaporating the process sucks heat out and makes it feel cooler. And then at the coldest time of the day, which is the hour before dawn when it's darkest, the stomata open again and release water vapor, and it condenses, which means it releases heat. And so it warms the microclimate a little bit just before the sun starts going to work on it and stuff. So we would have more comfortable climates if we have more vegetation around us.
Let me ask about that inch of soil per year that the lawn can produce.
Yeah.
Is that effectively the same kind of benefit as fertilizing your lawn in the first place? It sounds like you just don't need any fertilizer at all. Is that the case?
Right. So the state of Massachusetts recommends that you only use 100% slow release fertilizer. And that, instead of the fast release, you're told to apply on all 5 holidays, 5 times a year, 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. And any more than that just burns the grass. That's the science. It's any more, and whereas the state ag recommends that you use a 1/2 pound of the 100% slow release. And the 100% slow release are coated pellets of fertilizer, so that they only feed the grass when it wants to grow because it's moist enough and it's the right temperature for it to happen. So you put it on in the spring or fall just once and you're good for the year. You probably don't even need it. It's optional, but it does have some nutrients for that. So yeah.
Well, so what should we never use on a lawn? Like Roundup, for instance. What are the materials?
Right. So a Roundup has a glyphosate, which is a poison that goes up the food chain. So we're fine. So a lawn care employee died from cancer, and so his family's getting $1 million a year from Monsanto, which they had to close now and stuff. So and unfortunately, it's turning up in the ice cream we eat because the cows are eating grass that had glyphosate, and the beer we drink because the hops had glyphosate and stuff. So we want to get it out of the environment. And instead of using Roundup, there are soap-based herbicides that you can buy that are not or you can take a gallon of vinegar and add a cup of salt and a tablespoon of dish soap and put that in a squirt bottle and just go at your weeds, whatever you call a weed. And that, smell like vinegar, but that's not quite as strong as the soap-based one.
Yeah, we have some recipes on the site. We'll include a link in the article that goes with it. So let me ask you this. You mentioned, and I was actually surprised, that mowing twice every other week rather than every 3 weeks produces more insect population. How often should a healthy lawn be watered then?
I don't water my lawn.
At all?
No.
I want you to talk to my wife because she tells me I have to water it several times a week, and then we argue about that.
Yeah, I lived out in the country and they had big lawns out there, and I wouldn't water my lawn. It would brown up, and the neighbor watered his lawn, and his driveway turned red because of all the iron that was in the water that he had been spreading on his lawn and stuff. I have 3 kids, and they would run around on the brown lawn, and they would they could just play like normal. It didn't impede the lawn.
It's not like you're going to hurt yourself on a brown lawn.
No, it's just like, yeah.
Well, hey, let's take another break. We'll be right back with Rob Moir and talk more about lawns. Welcome back to our conversation with Rob Moir of the Ocean River Institute. You mentioned this earlier about the CO2 capture and sequestration capabilities of the lawn. Let's talk a little more about that. Do you think of lawns as a tool we can use to address the atmospheric CO2 that we've pumped into the sky over the past 150 years? Is this something that we could literally be using our lawns to help remediate?
Yes, the lawn is the best thing in your yard to reduce your carbon footprint of the whole household, because the lawn is, the grasses are pulling down so much carbon that's going into soil. And then it is transformed chemically to become humus. And humus is the holy grail of gardeners. And this is a very stable organic carbon mixture that will hold the carbon for thousands of years. So we talk about soil as long-term carbon storage, and forest is short-term carbon storage, because forests will only hold it for hundreds of years. Of course, you want both, and then you've got the best of both worlds. But nothing draws down more carbon for plant than does. And so we were trying to get people to sign on to our stuff, and so we were tabling, and I would set out the drain board, and then have from the kitchen sink, and have at the bottom two Lego houses, and then a spongy lawn and a rock patio. And the kids would take a turkey baster and water and deluge down and see which one survived better. Yeah. So the point is, you should replace your impervious surfaces with grass, because then you'll be, it feel better on your feet, but also, you'll be capturing more carbon. And so think about, where are there opportunities to replace impervious surfaces with grass?
That's interesting. Rob, you really have just changed my opinion about the lawn. I have thought of them as the enemy for a long time, but it sounds like they could be an ally if taken care of appropriately. It's not the industrial way, but by actually treating it like a plant and an ecosystem.
Absolutely. I mean, the increase of wildlife you see between natural lawns is just really exciting.
Yeah. What rabbits?
Wonderful stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, rabbits, for instance, since we started this approach to our lawn, have flocked to our house, almost a plague. So tell us about the Natural Lawns with Healthy Soils for Climate Restoration Challenge, what the Ocean River Institute is challenging everybody in Massachusetts to do.
Right. So it's really hard to get people interested in taking care, in their lawns, because we've all been taught. And this is our biggest obstacle, is that I, as a science teacher, and I was taught in science that the ecosystem is 4 parts. There's animals, plants, detritus, and minerals. And, so the animals die, and then they're broken up, and it becomes, and so we've missed out on the whole carbon transfer stuff. So we want people to understand that their lawns aren't polluting. And it's really hard, because we've been taught all this and stuff. So we were having the hardest time getting people just to pledge not to do it. And then I remembered that out here in Massachusetts, we have these high school football teams that have been playing each other at Thanksgiving, these big rivalries. And so we thought, let's make it a competition or a challenge. So we are challenging towns to pledge not to spread fertilizer or chemicals on your lawn. And I hire student interns, college student interns, and I had one student last summer who was a graduate of Lincoln Sudbury High School and was at UMass Lowell. And so we set up at the Lincoln transfer station saying, sign these things. And, oh no, another signing stuff. And then we said, yes, but Concord Carlisle is playing. And so they, oh, okay, we'll sign Lincoln Sudbury.
Concord, I hate those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And so there are 2 newspapers in Lincoln. And so they were the arch rivals, and so the 2 Lincoln newspapers ran a picture of us sitting at the transfer station competing against Concord Carlisle. So then the Concord paper ran it in their newspaper, and we were set up the next week in Concord. And so we had two petitions going for Team Concord Carlisle and for Team Lincoln Sudbury, because Concord is a famous town you may have heard of. And,
yeah, there was something happened there.
Yeah,
The revolution.
Kind of bridge that arched the flood and all that stuff. So, so all the kids from Lincoln go shopping in Concord. So we had a good turnout and stuff. So that makes it, and the whole point is to distribute, stickers that show the springtails and worms and the wonderful animals and wildlife that's in the soil. So we make it educational. And even though very few people sign the pledge, a lot of people are reading it in the newspapers. And
if they sign up, they also start evangelizing to everybody else in their community. It sounds like it's not like you sign up your own lawn, you sign up your town.
Well, yeah, I'm hoping that people will put their stickers out and get other people to sign up, so in theory, the town with the highest percentage of signers wins. But you're all winners because we're all learning. We can save money by not spending on lawn care. It's just a win-win.
When we were discussing this conversation prior to now, you shared that about 2,000 square miles of Massachusetts is managed, our lawns, golf courses, parks, and lawns.
No, just residential lawns.
Just residential lawns.
I'm only talking about residential lawns. We want you to treat your lawn the way the golf courses do, which is they only use 100% slow. They only use quick release fertilizer to mix with some seed and fill divot holes and stuff, because they don't want any of that fertilizer to wash off the land and cause pollution, because it's a waste of money, actually.
It's good to hear that they are taking that kind of responsible approach.
So,
but if we were
towns and stuff,
if we were to convert that 2,000 square miles of lawn being industrially managed, for lack of a better description, how much of a CO2 impact would that make? Do you have a sense of that?
No, I mean, I run the numbers, but it's just crazy, but think about it,
you're really talking about millions of pounds.
Yeah, you're talking,
That's really interesting. I mean, so what we could be doing as communities is starting to collectively decide to sequester a great deal of carbon simply by spending less money on treating our lawns.
And walking on it more. So you want to stimulate the grass to grow more, so it sucks down more. Yeah.
Okay. So if you've got pets, those pets are also, when they go out in the yard, they're doing some work too. So everybody's
that's right. The dogs are running around. That's right. They're helping to crunch the grass and get it to suck down more carbon.
Well, this is fascinating. How can our listeners learn more about the challenge and the natural lawn care practices that you talk about?
Yes, please visit our website, Ocean River Institute, www.oceanriver.org, and take a look at the different campaigns, but particularly, take a look at the Healthy Lawns website, and drop us a line. You can. We also have watershed teams for different rivers, and so this is we found that there are people living in California that remember canoeing this river, and so we had issues on different rivers, and so we're very cosmopolitan. So if you have a favorite town in Massachusetts or a river or something, you can join that team. You don't have to be in the place that's pledging. So it's okay to reach out, because the whole thing is just education. We want people to know about it.
And there's a lot of information about how to take care of your lawn as well. So folks, do check it out. Rob, I want to thank you for taking some time to talk with us today.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you, Mitch. And I want to thank everyone for listening, and I hope you have greener spaces and more vegetation around us.
We've been speaking with Rob Moir, Ph.D., who is president and executive director of the Ocean River Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And you can learn more, as he mentioned at the end of the conversation, at www.oceanriver.org. No space, no dash in Ocean River, oceanriver.org. Take some time to check out the Green Lawns Naturally Cool Commonwealth Challenge page as well. It's interesting. I really have always thought lawns were just plain bad for the world because of their overwatering. But if you treat them the right way, if you give them the appropriate amount of water, which is a lot less than we currently use, and you don't use commercial fertilizers that, as Rob explained, result in a less healthy and shallow lawn that doesn't respond to our changing climate as efficiently as it could, it's an opportunity to contribute to local environmental biodiversity, capturing carbon, and reducing our water usage overall. So take a few minutes to learn about how to take better care of your lawn, if in fact you continue to have one. Those of you out here in the drought-stricken West, maybe we should all be moving to xeriscaping, but if you have a lawn, consider letting it go brown during the summer. This is Earth911 Sustainability in Your Ear. I'm Mitch Ratcliffe, and we're going to be back with another innovator interview soon. I hope you'll take a few minutes to share this podcast and many of the others that we have. There's about 300 out there now. With your friends and family, people that you work with. Let's get more ideas out there so that there is less waste and we can start to restore this planet. We'll be back soon. In the meantime, folks, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's all take care of this beautiful planet of ours. Have a green day.